Hello and welcome to my presentation about multi-age planning and teaching. Through this presentation, I will analyse 3 lesson plans that I have created for my multi-age classroom, which consists of Year 4, 5 and 6 students. I will discuss how I have differentiated to cater to their individual needs, the teaching strategies I have implemented throughout, and finally I will discuss the resources I have used.
Firstly, I will talk about differentiation. Every individual student in my classroom had their own individual needs and interests, and as a teacher, it is my job to cater to them. By catering to these needs, I am enabling them to succeed at school. This notion of differentiation is supported by Carol Tomlinson and, more importantly, the Australian Standards for Teachers. The first way in which I have differentiated is by allowing students the opportunity to choose the living thing they will research. This has been highlighted in blue on the screen. By giving them this choice, students can make a decision based on their interests and possibly their prior knowledge. It means they are what Carol Tomlinson puts as active explorers, and I am a guide rather than a dispenser of information. Another way I have differentiated is by including picture books within the learning experiences with Year 4s. The reason behind this is to cater to the needs of the low ability level learners and the EALD learners. The Australian curriculum suggests using visual cues when teaching EALD students new concepts, as they can use the pictures to make connections to the words. Using the storybooks also meets the needs of the lower ability learners, as they too can use the pictures to help create meaning, and the Year 4s tend to really enjoy a storybook, so I thought that might be a good reason to put it in too. I also use a lot of visual examples in my lesson plans, especially with the grade 4s. I give examples of life cycle diagrams and general label diagrams to ensure they feel confident with what they have to create. Once again, this is using visual cues, which caters to EALD learners, low ability learners, and also visual learners, which is supported by Gardner's multiple intelligences. Differentiation is also for those who are of high ability or gifted. My classroom consists of one gifted student in Year 5. To cater to his needs, I have created an individual worksheet for him. This worksheet is very similar to that of everyone else's to ensure he does not feel like he is required to do more work than everyone else. However, some of the questions are altered to require him to do further research into concepts we haven't discussed yet. Another way I have catered to his needs and others is by creating activities where students can write as little or as much as they want. This could definitely backfire. However, if I engage the students enough at the beginning, I am hopeful they will be extensive with their responses. Another way I have differentiated is by using explicit worksheets as a resource for when students are working independently. As the students are required to work independently often, it is important for me to be explicit with all forms of instruction, and in this case, in the form of a worksheet. The worksheet also allows students to draw. I have included this to help differentiate for EALD learners, low ability learners, but also those who might struggle to write their understandings down. A resource I've created is the class library, which consists of a range of books that caters to a vast range of reading abilities. I've ensured I have included textbooks for the gifted student who is passionate about science and will want to research in depth. I've also included simple picture books to cater to low readers and my EALD students. By providing this variety, all students can choose books based on their ability, but also based on their interests. I have ensured there are an abundance of books regarding crops, cattle and sheep, as Sandy Plains is a farming community, and this may be of significant interest to some. Finally, I would like to wrap up talking about how I have differentiated by explaining a teaching strategy I have used called cooperative learning. Throughout the lesson, I have allowed students to work either in pairs or on their own. This way of differentiating is strongly supported by Carol Tomlinson, as she defines a differentiated classroom as one that provides flexible grouping constantly. This teaching strategy caters to individuals' ability levels, for example, low ability learners getting assistance from those who are of higher ability, but also students who prefer to work alone can, and those who like to work together can. This could cause issue as some students may sit back and not contribute. However, with the exit cards at the end of the day, I can see if all students are learning something or not. The exit cards will be discussed later on in this presentation. I would now like to talk about teaching strategies I have used to cater to my specific multi-age class. The first strategy is also a resource and is one I mentioned earlier. It is the exit cards. I got this idea from a South Australian school which use it in their multi-age classroom and find it to be quite beneficial. I found a template online and adapted it to suit what we were learning about in our classroom. The purpose of using these cards is to allow me to gain some sort of formative assessment of how students are going with what they are learning and what they might need more information about. This is particularly important in a multi-age class as I am not with the students directly for each session. They are required to work independently, therefore I need some sort of way to check for understanding, and I thought these were a fun and appropriate way to do that. One of the major teaching strategies I have used is that of inquiry-based learning. This style is highly supported by the Australian Curriculum for Teaching Science. This strategy allows students to take control of their learning. The way I have facilitated inquiry-based learning is by allowing students to choose the living thing they will research, and then carefully I have scaffolded lessons to facilitate the inquiry process. With saying this, I have made sure also students can explore further if they wish. I don't want to create too many boundaries for them. Through the inquiry process, students will have to ask questions and make predictions based on their prior knowledge, which is all part of inquiry-based learning and are also skills required for them to develop according to the Australian curriculum. Due to the nature of this classroom and that students will have to be independent learners for a lot of the lessons, I think this strategy will work quite well. Another teaching strategy I have used is the 5 E's model, which is supported by Primary Connections and is based on a constructivist approach to learning. Within these lessons, you will see the first 3 E's in action. In the first lesson, my aim is to engage students and get them interested in what is to come. During this time of engaging students, I am also establishing their prior knowledge, which is crucial for me to know so I can alter lessons if required to meet their needs. So I guess in a way this is a form of differentiating as well. The first and second lessons I require students to explore through my explicit teaching, but also a range of resources that I have provided, like the class library and the internet, in particular a great BBC website. By exploring in these 2 lessons, students are then preparing themselves to explain in lesson 3 what they have learnt. Later in the unit is when students will complete the elaborate and the evaluate phases. By using this model, students develop investigation skills and also the opportunity to represent their understandings and keep re-representing as they develop further understandings. Another teaching strategy I would like to talk about is that of explicit teaching. As Sandy Plains is located in the Darling Downs Southwest region, I have decided to implement the lead model of Walt, Wilf, and Tib for every lesson. This strategy helps students to understand what the main focus is for the session, what it is specifically I am looking for in their work, and why we are doing what we are. The final teaching strategy I would like to discuss is who I am teaching directly. What I mean by this is in the first lesson, I am with the Year 4s. Then in the second, I am with the Year 5/6s. And then for the third, I go back to the Year 4s. The reason I have done this is to ensure all grades are receiving some sort of explicit teacher-directed learning. Because we are a multi-age classroom, it is difficult for me to be teaching all students at once all the time. Therefore, I have to split my time up and ensure that when I am not with the other students, they have explicit written instructions to ensure their success. In lesson 2, I have asked Mrs. Kath to come in and help the Year 4s. This is because there are 2 EALD students in this group, and also this is where most of my low ability students are, and I feel they require adult supervision to ensure their success with each activity. The Year 5/6s, on the other hand, are more independent, and they really enjoy controlling their own learning to some degree. I guess this means I am differentiating to each grade's needs as well as individual needs. I've already discussed most of the resources I have used and why. However, I would like to look at one more detail, which is the smiley face cards. All students have a green smiley face, an orange confused face, and a red sad face. These cards are designed to be used when students are working independently. In this case, mainly the Year 5/6s. When students are confused or need help, they can ask someone who is on a green smiley face. This resource will promote student collaboration, and it will help reduce the amount of times I am being interrupted while I'm working with the grade 4s with questions that a peer could probably answer for them. This resource I have adapted from an idea that was provided by the Teaching and Learning of South Australia, who discuss using traffic light symbols in a similar way. Teaching in multi-age classrooms can be difficult, especially for me as a first-year teacher. However, by implementing differentiation strategies, teaching strategies, specific multi-age strategies, and using a range of resources, I believe I will be successful at teaching multi-age, and this class in particular. Thank you.